Ludum Dare. If you don't know what Ludum Dare is, it's basically the biggest online game jam event. If you don't know what a game jam is, why are you here? But in all honesty, a game jam is about a 3-day, sometimes a 7-day, sometimes a month, it kind of varies, period, where a bunch of people are given a theme and they have to make a game based on that. I can either work as an individual or in a small team. Ludum Dare is 3 days long, and the theme this time was deeper and deeper. Now obviously, when you hear that prompt, a couple things jump to mind. Number 1, Inception. Number 2, a dungeon crawler. Number 3, really just those 2 things actually, it's just 2. But the issue is, Inception sounds difficult to do, and dungeon crawlers are overplayed and boring. That's not true, actually, I love Diablo. So I started thinking of other things that kept getting deeper and deeper. The US's debt, the hole in my shoes. But then I thought, wait, Plinko. Yes, my thought process was literally Inception, dungeon crawler, Plinko in the span of about 5 minutes, I kid you not. Then I had a real stroke of inspiration, and I thought, wait a minute, what if I combine a dungeon crawler and Plinko? So I present to you Dungeon Faller. See, it's a pun, get it? It's a pun. The premise of the game is you start out on a top platform and you pick a point to jump from, much like you would dropping a ball in Plinko. And then, if I code it correctly, and I know I have because I record these intros after I already made the game, you fall through a randomly generated, well, pseudo-randomly generated map until you run out of health, and then you fall into a Plinko. You get gold, you buy upgrades, you kill monsters. It's fun, it's simple. Hopefully it's an addictive gameplay loop, because as we all know, the best games are the addicting ones. And while I kind of cracked and went insane in the 3-day time period, I made a product that I think was pretty good in the end. And there's a link in the description. You can go play it if you want. Just saying, you should go down to the description, subscribe, and then go play my game. It's available on itch.io, it's free. But without further ado, here's what I did on day 1. So unfortunately for me, the Ludum Dare theme was announced at 9 PM my time, which gave me time to see the theme, start thinking about it, but it wasn't much to actually get a prototype going. So by the time I woke up the next morning, I was already about 12 hours behind schedule. Amazingly, I actually prioritized gameplay over graphics, which I know is an amazing feat, but people do crazy things when they don't have much time. I was so smart that I set up a Trello list, and if you're wondering what a Trello list is, basically it's a post-it note that keeps track of your stuff, except I never used it. This is what it looked like on day 1, and this is what it looks like right now. But it was good to get my thoughts organized, because it did help me get through the stuff I needed to do. But by the end of day 1, I managed to have a circle fall and hit other circles inside of a square, which is probably the most thrilling gameplay I have ever seen. The real kicker on day 1 is that I wanted it to be procedurally generated terrain, which is not easy. I've never done it before, and this is even far simpler than the most rudimentary forms. That doesn't make any sense. Basically, it's difficult and I've never done it before. I had all of the important stuff done, like when it should spawn, how much of it should spawn, and how many enemies or chests, the ratio in between them that it should spawn. But the one thing that I couldn't get was making sure that obstacles didn't overlap, because that really bothered my OCD. It wouldn't even really affect gameplay, it just doesn't look good, and I spent 6 hours trying to fix it. I played around with this function called physics2d.circleOverlap, and if you don't know what that means, great, I don't either. But after a very long night of not knowing what was going on, I went to bed at 1 in the morning with somewhat random terrain generation in place. On day 2, I worked on graphics. It's not actually that simple. On day 2, I did work almost entirely on graphics, but let me tell you what I did to do it. For me, the simplest route to making good graphics in a short amount of time would be to do pixel art. Pixel art because it means I don't have to do 3D modeling, which is time consuming and tricky, and I'm not very good at it, and because I don't know how to use or have a subscription to Photoshop, so I can't create more realistic looking things. I used a website called Piskel to create some sprites, and I think they look pretty good. And at the end of day 2, these are the graphics that I had. I was hoping to get a retro dungeon crawler type feel to it while still maintaining a funny and comedic bouncy effect that you get from having just a plain old circle collider on the main player character. On the third day when I woke up, I only had about 10 hours left to finish and submit this project, which is daunting because as it stands right now, it's not a playable game. So first things first, I had to add some replayability to it, otherwise it would be a one and done thing and it would kind of suck. So I made a player profile that counts how many chests you hit on the way down, does some fancy math and gives you coins based on that, along with some additional coins based on where you land in the final Plinko segment. Then, after you die, a button shows up that takes you to a shop where you can purchase 3 upgrades. There's an armor upgrade, which grants you points of armor. It lets you absorb damage as you fall. A air dash upgrade that gives you some control over your player, which makes it more fun. And a chest dash upgrade, which I added with like 20 minutes left, that lets you replenish an air dash when you collide with a chest. And while armor is important for getting deeper, the real fun mechanic is the air dash, because it takes away the feeling of helplessness that you get while falling through the maze. You don't have any control while you're falling until you purchase the air dash upgrade. It's useful for colliding with chests or avoiding monsters. Then I went on a hunt for some sound effects to make it feel more polished, and because the category in Ludum Dare that you get rated on is specifically sound. I found a lot of free stuff from around the web that I definitely did not steal, it was all free. And this cool royalty-free music soundtrack I found on YouTube that I'll leave a link to in the description. It sounds pretty good and fits the game nicely. I imported all of those into Unity, followed another Brecky's tutorial, and before you knew it, I had sound working in my game, which adds a lot more pop to it. Lastly, I added a main menu and a how to play page because it's kind of complicated if you don't have instructions, and with 19 seconds left, I submitted my game to Ludum Dare 48, making it officially the first game I have ever finished. And at the end of day 3, this is what the game looked like. So yeah, that's what 3 days of work looks like. I'm glad it turned out in the end as something that felt like it worked together, not disjointed or broken like so many other Ludum Dare submissions, and that is the end goal. If you made it this far in the video, thanks. I feel like I'm kind of obliged to say that. I also feel like I'm obliged to say subscribe. If you want to play the game for yourself, there's a link in the description, and I'll see you in the next video.